Well, hey guys, thank you so much for talking to me. I'm Joshua Ryan with FandomWire. How are you guys doing?
Good, Joshua. How's it going?
We're doing all right, Josh.
Good, good. I'm a big fan. I'll just start off by saying that of all three Clerks movies. I remember seeing the first Clerks when I was probably too young to see it. I was at a friend's house. I feel like we all had that one friend whose parents kind of just like let them do whatever, and that's where I was at. And I watched Clerks, and I thought it was awesome. And a couple of years later at the same house, I ended up watching the Clerks animated series, which is kind of a funny jump to go from that movie to an animated series. But so I've been watching you guys for a long time, just like you guys have been playing these characters for a long time. So just thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
Well,
thank you. That's very nice.
So I want to talk obviously about Clerks 3, the supposed final Clerks movie. Is this the final Clerks movie? Is this like Halloween Ends where they're just going to keep doing it, or is this really, or are we closing the chapter?
I think Kevin is a big fan of the Rolling Stone business model, where he just wants to keep writing these characters again and again and again. As long as he walks, he'll probably keep writing them in some way, shape, or form. I'm probably, maybe not with us. There will be some sort of Clerks afterlife or whatever.
Okay, that's exciting. Would you guys want to keep playing these? Would you want to keep playing these characters if the opportunities presented itself, or do you guys feel like this was a nice closing that you kind of want to wrap up?
Jeff?
Yeah, I'd probably say this is a nice closing. I think we could wrap it up here. I think if you ever see us again or see the Clerks again, it will probably be in an animated form that I think we could all get into, but I don't foresee any more live action Clerks movies. Of course, I've said this before.
Right. That's understandable. So compared to the first two, I mean, the Clerks movies, Kevin Smith in general is often known for a lot of gross out humor, the kind of R-rated humor, but Clerks 3 more so than the first two touches more on kind of the meaning of life and dreams and heart. How did Kevin pitch this concept to you guys when he came to you saying, I've got one more I want to do? Like, how did he bring it to you?
Jeff?
There was another version of the script that was written many years ago, and we all read that version of the script, and it wasn't, I'm not saying anything out of line here. Kevin has already talked about it. It was something that didn't sort of fit within the Clerks world. And, many years later, when he approached with the new story, it was just his enthusiasm for it was sort of what was easy to get behind. And when he did pitch the story, it fit in the Clerks world a lot better than the previous script, which didn't really fit in the Clerks world.
Yeah, I would agree with Jeff. The first one was a lot darker, tackling issues that Kevin really didn't have huge experience personally doing. While this version, he integrates things that happened to him in real life. We're back in the store, of course, which that's where he did really work and start the whole thing.
Right.
And the fact that we could go into this metaverse of a story within a story based on a real life happening, multiple real life stories that you could draw upon. I think that's what makes this story and this version of Clerks 3 much more compelling, much more heartfelt, much more encompassing things that I think everybody can relate to.
Right. Yeah.
And it was, when I saw one of these screenings in LA, Kevin's convenience store or inconvenience store, whatever he's calling it. I went to the screening and I heard him talk afterward, and he was kind of talking about the first script. And he said, one of the things about the first script is it was a completely made up story. It was something that didn't happen. It was completely made up. And maybe that's why it didn't fit real well. The Clerks for Kevin has always been close to him. He's made no bones about saying the Dante character is him, and he takes sort of a lot, he worked in the story. He takes a lot of that from that. And I think probably that's what helped it, is going back to the heart attack. It meant more to him. It was more of a story that was closer to home and not just sort of a made up story. Maybe the fact that it was a completely made up story sort of made it feel disjointed.
Right. Yeah, I could definitely see that. Now you talk about how Kevin worked in that store and how so much of it is based on his actual experiences. Do you guys have experiences similar to this? Have you guys been clerks in video stores or anything like that?
I've never been a clerk in any type of setting. No.
Uh, I worked in a fast food place, like back when I was in my teens, and then worked in my late teens, early 20s in a supermarket environment. So I know retail, I know about stocking, I know about customers.
Okay. What was your first job, Brian?
First job, I was working at a chicken fast food place. It was a place called Chicken Holiday in Sayreville, New Jersey. So it was just the guy in the back cutting up chicken,
Yeah.
mopping, breading chicken, helping cook the chicken, fryers, that kind of thing. Your usual first foray into like retail
Right.
food type of job. And then the second one was I got into the supermarket. I did the deli counter first, then went over to the meat department, then the seafood department, and then did really well there that they wanted me to do store management training. So then I did night crew management, and then I did store management and stuff. So, and then that's when I pulled
You're
out.
such a Dante.
I was such a Dante. I was doing a life that people were supposed to do, as opposed to doing something which I wanted to do, which was the act.
And Jeff, how about you?
My first job is I worked on a fishing boat.
Oh man.
During high school, I grew up sort of on the Jersey Shore, and I think I was 9 years old when I started working on a fishing boat, just sort of cleaning it up, and then I eventually would start going out on it, and I eventually became the first mate. Gilligan, if you will.
Right.
So that was my big work experience. I did it sort of every summer throughout high school. I worked on a fishing boat.
Nice. I started off in a Burger King, which I think is a pretty stereotypical first job. So how did you guys get cast in Clerks? If you don't mind just going back a little bit, when Kevin first came up with this idea, how did you guys get involved?
I had worked out of the theater that the auditions were being held at, First Avenue Playhouse in Atlantic Highlands, and the owner was approached by Kevin to use his facility to hold auditions for this film that they were making locally. Plus, this was before everybody had cell phones and the internet, so that owner had a list of actors and working actors in the area, and he was like, "Could you do me a favor? Could we have access to your list, and could you call these actors to come in and audition for us?" So I got a call a month prior to the auditions to come in. Said, "Oh, the Joe Bagnall, the owner, is like, you fit the age range that they're looking for. You should come and audition next month for this." And I was like, "Okay." Came in, auditioned on the second night of auditions. He liked what my audition was, had me come back and to two callbacks and read opposite him, and then once again opposite Marilyn Gigliotti, who I had worked with before. And then he cast for what I was, Dante.
For myself, the video store that was in Clerks is where I actually rented videos, and it's where Kevin worked. So he split time sort of between the video store and the convenience store, and I would go in there and rent films, and he was actually sitting there on this giant word processor. It was like the size of a suitcase, and he was literally writing the script. So I knew about it, before it sort of came about. And when the auditions for it came up, I went to the auditions with a friend of mine and sat there and watched the auditions and kind of was making fun of my friend.
Right.
And it was one of those, "Oh yeah, you think you can do better? Go ahead and do it." So it was one of those moments. I asked Kevin, I said, "Listen, I got to go up on stage here and read something. What could I read?" And he was like, "Well, try the character of Jay, because I wrote that for Jay Muse, but I'm not sure Jay Muse is going to be able to play Jay Muse."
Right.
So we're looking for a backup Jay Muse. So that's what I did. It was the first time I'd ever looked at any of the lines, or, we talked about the script, but I had never read any of it. So
Right.
I actually auditioned as Jay.
And those are like two completely opposite stories of how you come to play the two leads in this. That's awesome.
That is true. That is true. Brian did it more the traditional way.
Right.
As he tends to do. Brian does things a little more traditionally than I.
Unlike Jay just went the way of the casting couch.
Right.
True enough.
So this is at the time this was being made, just a local film, extremely low budget. Could you guys was there at any time while you're making this movie that you had an inkling or an idea that it would become what it has become, that you were starring in something that you'd be doing interviews now in 2022 for the third entry of this movie?
No, not at all. I was just hoping to get a VHS copy to show friends, like on a weekend, like, oh, look what me and a bunch of people did last spring.
Right.
Let's have a couple of drinks and, rip a bowl and watch this. But that's the thing, that I wasn't that visionary. Kevin, Dave Klein, Scott Mosier, those are the guys who went to film school, knew what to do once the film was done, how to enter it into film festivals and stuff like that. And thank God, luckily, we had someone in the very first screening of a film at a film festival by the name of Mr. Bob Falk, who just so happened to be connected with the Sundance Film Festival, and the rest is history.
And I don't think I'd be saying anything out of line to say that I think the original idea behind making Clerks was for Kevin just to use as a calling card. I don't think he ever foresaw Clerks actually coming out. I think he made it sort of as a student film to introduce himself to the movie world. Because I think in reality, he had probably, I don't know if this is factual, but he had the idea for Dogma before Clerks, or he started writing Dogma before Clerks. I think the ultimate thing for Kevin was to make this short film to prove that he can make a film, and then he really wanted to make Dogma. So I don't even think Kevin foresaw the movie coming out and becoming what it became.
Right. Now it's just this powerhouse, cult classic. Yeah. That's so awesome. Almost a powerhouse. We're almost out of time, but one thing I wanted to know, it's such a fun group of people. It seems you guys are having a blast on camera. Is there any behind the scenes moment or something that stands out, the real funny moment or something that you'll always remember, maybe from behind the scenes of one of these films?
When shooting Clerks II, our last day of shooting, there's the scene where Dante and Randall are rebuilding the quick stop. And we're on top of the roof with an actual handsaw and cutting like 2x4s for framing, whatever. Jeff had the idea to play a prank on Kevin. We told everybody involved, including the medic and stuff like that, that we were going to pull this prank that Jeff will have cut his finger off with the power saw. And we were like, and I'd scream off because there was no one on the roof but us, because it was a crane shot, right? Camera's on the crane, and then it goes. And so we did it. And now Kevin's in the store just watching what the camera sees through the monitor. And so we do this prank where it's like zip, and it's like, oh my God. And I turned it, he's cut his finger off, medic. And the only thing that Kevin could do in that panic was just grab a roll of paper towels and run to the ladder as if that was going to help him.
He was doing something.
That's credit to Jeff. Jeff thought of that up, and I'll always remember that. I think it even made it onto like the DVD extras.
That's awesome.
The funny thing about that was Kevin at the time smoked cigarettes. And I just remember the whole time that he was doing it, he ran into the store and he grabbed the paper towels and everything else. He always maintained the cigarette hanging out of his mouth. And he was like, I was so worried. And I was like, yeah, but not worried enough to quit smoking.
Right. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I think that wraps up our time. Brian, I just have to know, were you supposed to be here today? Was this like planned? Is this good?
It was last minute, technically a couple of days ago, but I'm glad we got to plan it.
Okay, very good. Thank you guys so much. I can't wait to see what else comes from you guys. Hopefully we get a little bit more. You mentioned animation. I would love to see more animated Clerks.
Me too.
All right. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys later.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks, Joshua.